So tonight, I have the optimization study final report. I know when I was here about a month or so ago, I presented a 30,000-foot view of the executive summary, and I'm going to drill down quickly. I'm not going to go into all of the intimate detail that I did when we had the last conversation. I'm going to hit the main key points and then take any questions. So I do want to thank the district, the several hundred stakeholders that participated in the process, from the interviews, the surveys, the students, the community, the forums, the countless phone calls to Mary and her staff, to Kyle for helping with some of the technical stuff. It has been an absolute joy and delight to get to know this community, and the work that you're doing is really incredible. So I'm going to jump right in. When we had the conversation way back in January about an optimization study, we talked about the unity of purpose. We talked about how we would do this study. We talked about district strengths, and as you've heard me say, asking the staff, what frustrates you? What causes you concern? What's laying heavily on your heart? We talked about what were perceptions. Some were true, some were not true, and what reality is for the district. And we sprinkled in some other findings and data within the very comprehensive report that is about 50 plus pages, plus attachments. When you put it all together, as I said last meeting, this is a very beefy, comprehensive document. And I think I can safely say that if any stakeholder had something on their mind, they had a number of opportunities to get it out there. The other thing about the optimization written report, Dr. Yotis does have it. Thank you to the board members who did go through it. We appreciate that final look in terms of edits. Does this make sense before we release it to the community? And I think the important part to this is that every fact that we put in here, we were able to independently verify in multiple locations. So it just wasn't an opinion, it was something that could be verified in multiple locations, across multiple stakeholders, with multiple points of view to arrive at some recommendations. We do have a few key takeaways and next steps. So we looked at the optimization study to really get the temperature of the culture, the instruction, your fiscal, and your facility concerns. And folks had opinions on all of those. You can go to the next one, Kyle. So in the methodology, we dove deep into the data. We held dozens and dozens and dozens of stakeholder interviews, including free open text responses in the surveys. That's included in one of the attachments. As I said last time, we only had to redact out 2 statements. One was just calling out a staff member by name about their certification, which upon investigation was not true, so we just whited that person and blacked out that person's name. And the other one was speaking favorably about someone, but in a way that maybe was a little bit of a dig to somebody else. So we just redacted that name out. The comments are still there, and it's important to note that if it was on their mind, it's in the survey. So nobody can say, well, I said X and you didn't put it in. Okay, so that's important. We had multiple public forums where there were approximately 75, maybe 80 folks that participated in 4 of the public forums. We gave multiple board updates and progress reporting, and we arrived at the final report and recommendations. So, district strengths, and these are not necessarily in order, but they're not out of order either. The strengths: small, connected, family-oriented relationship with the district. This is family here at the GD building in the Ryan School Union Free School District. Family is important, as the new movie Stitch says, Ohana is family. You are a family, it's important. Your academic success and your commitment to class sizes that make sense is part of your DNA in this system, and the stakeholders highly value the education that they get out of this system. Universal, students, faculty, staff, community members that don't have kids in the system, that was a pervasive theme that was almost universally 100% stated by stakeholders. On the other side of the coin are frustrations. Limited options, limited opportunities, sports, clubs, activities. That came out day one from the students, and to your credit, you listened. And you took strategic decisions and chances, and you made some structural changes. And by all reasonable accounts, that has gone swimmingly well and been successful. Fiscal stress and limited resources are a reality in every New York State school system, save some very affluent systems. The majority of the 700 plus districts are feeling the same pinch, but in your case, that pinch is tighter and harder than most other systems. And the long-term sustainability of the district is a legitimate, palpable concern of every stakeholder. That's universal. Nobody's saying we're doing fine, we got plenty of money, leave us alone. No one is saying that. They're saying the fiscal stress that you are under is real. Rick Timms was here a month or so ago. That report is also as an attachment with Rick cited. You had 36 months, you now have 35 months. Sorry. Okay, and that is a real concern. Perceptions, stakeholders want Wine and Skill to remain viable. Staff is committed to their culture, their learning, and their educational experiences. The campus here at GD is an essential part of this community, and the facilities are in need improvement. The other thing that's kind of the undercurrent of that is the stakeholders are well aware of the urgency that the district is facing. They may not have been so inclined last fall or the start of the school year, but in the conversations that we had with stakeholders or survey responses and the follow-up conversations, they are understanding that there is an urgency for things to happen. Now the reality is sustainability must equate to changes, and that the fiscal stress that the entire system is feeling is beginning to creep into the instructional mindset. Folks are talking about opportunities missed and things that need to occur that they just don't either have the time, they don't have the bandwidth, they're overwhelmed because of everything that's happening outside of school, and it's starting to filter into the building. And as I mentioned, 36, 35 months is a fiscal clock that is a reality. It's not projected, it's not perceived. As you heard from Rick last month, it's a reality. We've had a couple of conversations outside of this process with the leadership team at the State Education Department, as well as elected officials that are the ones that are in charge of the purse strings for districts. It's not going to get better. There is no savior that's going to ride into town to save the day. So it's up and incumbent upon the district and the leadership team to find pathways forward. And therefore, reorganization is something that does actively and conscientiously need to be preserved and explored. Now, the district must make some of those decisions sooner rather than later, because there is a timetable for those things to happen, and we'll get to that in just a second. So the key findings: stakeholders want the district to be viable for the long term, and I'll quotation earmark the long term. A lot of that is going to be contingent upon decisions you make over the next 12 months. Some of that's going to be contingent upon what happens in Albany and Washington, D.C. Those are factors you can't control, so I'm going to say it. Control what you can control and keep moving the district forward as a leadership team, as you have done for years and years. I shudder to think what would happen if the district had not made those smart long-term decisions years ago for the predicament you might possibly be in if you didn't make those decisions, and now you're going to make decisions for the next years to come for the students. Finding 2, stakeholders agree there are severe financial risks. Stakeholders also agree in finding 3 that the climate and culture and the family connections, whatever decisions are made, are critical to the district. And they also, in finding 4, recognize that improvements are needed, both academically, instructionally, offerings, facilities, and the quality of life that makes this campus vibrant. Recommendations, this is the point where it's going to be a little bit more blunt. The district should formally accept the optimization report. The district should also pursue informal conversations with the Troy City School District. And from previous conversations, you know I've hesitated about naming names. We're past that point based on the qualitative data and the quantitative data of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of interactions with wine and skill stakeholders in this community. You should have those informal conversations, and you should move towards a joint feasibility study with Troy, because the optimization talks about the emotional temperature of the district. The feasibility study will talk about the facts, the finances, and do the numbers support that? We believe as the optimization study team that they do, and that then you should then create, assuming several things, that there is agreement and consensus to move forward with a feasibility study, that you then start to move to the next step of advertising and publicizing what the next step looks like based on those informal conversations. There's a very clear process that's also included as an attachment from the state ed primer that just came out, I think June 1st, and became widely and publicly available around the second week of June. So this is hot off the presses. There are a few changes there, but that's a tentative roadmap and a guide for the next steps, which will ultimately get you to a feasibility study being completed, assuming you have a dance partner in Troy, and that will take about 4 to 6 months to do. That's a deep, deep dive into the numbers and contracts and contractual language and how the districts are structured. And then that will generate a recommendation, and then that will guide you to the next step. If the math works out, we believe that it will, looking at the data so far, but the feasibility study will be a deep drill into that financial arrangement and construct between the two systems. Kyle, if you would, please, okay? 5 key takeaways, universal, non-negotiable things that should be instilled in your language and your vocabulary. Whatever decisions you make, they must be student-centered, and as we talked at the retreat, really stakeholder-centered, because it's not just about students, it's also about adults. You must be hyper-transparent, okay? If someone has a question, get that question, make sure it gets to the right person to answer it. It's perfectly okay to say, I don't know, let me get back to you, but then make sure you close out that communication circle to get back to the person, and then tell everyone what that answer is. Don't just tell one person, because you'll get a slightly different question from another person, and that might be a different answer, because it's really 2 separate questions. So be transparent and say it all, say it first, say it fast, and then move on to the next thing. Preserve identity. That's key to this community, that this community still has its identity. You must continue to adhere to your philosophy and your mission every day, every way, everyone together. Okay, is that right? I think that's pretty good. Pretty close. Because that's who you are, and no matter where this process takes you, you need to be true to your roots and your culture and your heritage as a system, because your community is counting on you as the leaders to help guide this next step, and it must be fiscally responsible. Next one. Next 60 days, receive the optimization report, share it with the community, informally meet with Troy, begin the process, and then institutionalize. If you can go back one, Kyle. Institutionalize those 5 key takeaways. Be deliberate with your language, be purposeful in your inquiries with everyone, and let the process unfold. Don't get too far ahead of your skis. Let the process guide you, and if you don't have an answer, then that's where your feasibility partners in Troy and with the team that will lead that deep dive into the finances, where they will help guide you. We can go to the next one, Kyle. And that's where we are. When you look at the optimization report, all 50 plus pages, you got to go to about page 40 before we name names and talk about other school districts. The team has reluctantly and purposefully kept that decision at distance to let the process unfold, but I can tell you based on the qualitative information, where people are, the options that they have, as well as the quantitative data that we looked at, I can tell you tonight on behalf of the full optimization team, based on our analysis, that you should pursue a feasibility study with Troy. And I'm happy to answer any questions or.
I just want to say that this report was, I like that you waited till the end to pick a partner for us. But with each data piece that you read through, I was like, oh my God. Oh my God. The extent of the data was unbelievable, but it brought to mind everything that we're not always aware of. You know, and it took this process to see those things. So for that, that's a good thing, and we thank you. And then we'll move forward from here.
I think it was good to see everything you put in that report validates, I mentioned this earlier, the work that Mary's put in and just the school culture in general, what we try to follow here, our mission statement and things like that was validated in this. Now the financial piece, mostly out of our control, and like you had mentioned, we've done a pretty good job just to get to this point. So I want to thank you for, validating their hard work and just system-wide how much hard work goes into keeping a school like this going and strong. And like Kathy said, just some eye-opening stuff and good validation for the teachers we have here, just through the process, the questions that were asked, and so that's good to know. So not a question for you, but more of a thank you, and it's good to know a lot of that, and a lot of the hard work that goes in is validated.
Bob, I have to say, it's been a pleasure working with you, and we had some really tough conversations, and you would come to my office and I tell the board, you kind of gave me a smackdown a couple times. Whether it was about the gym floor or, taking better care of myself. Your honest feedback, I can't even thank you enough. And we've made so many great changes already because of that. Because you have this way about you that can get really honest, deep feedback, the good, bad, and the ugly, as you said. And sometimes, again, it hurt my feelings. Sometimes I cried with you, but within the next day, within 24 hours, I made so many great changes because of that, hurtful feedback. And I said, when I read this, and I sent this off to the board, when I read the report, there was moments that, I smiled, that I got the chills, I had goosebumps, I felt a sense of pride. Then on the next, some of the feedback, I was embarrassed, I was hurt, we work so hard, why aren't we? So, it was so much, so many emotions, but at the end of it, there wasn't one thing that I could dispute. There wasn't one thing that I said, okay, yep, that happened, or I can see that happened, or it was so real. It was incredible that nothing could I dispute. And again, such a range of responses and emotions in me who loves this district very much and only wants the best for it. So again, I was overwhelmed with pride, but then, my heart broke too when you hear that the kids notice these imperfections in the hall that I'm like, what 10-year-old would notice that there's a heave in the gym floor? So again, you made me a better leader. I can't thank you enough. This 6 months has literally changed my life. So thank you.
Thank you.
And I'd like to say thank you too, being as this is my first night. I haven't seen the full report, but I came from a different aspect where I was, I went to the first meeting. I think I've been to every single one of your meetings and heard all of your reports to us. And I didn't know what to expect. And I remember that first meeting, you said, this is an open forum, ask whatever you want. I'm totally transparent, and you were. And it put me at ease. I felt like I could trust you, and that's something, that's, you know, that says something, and I just appreciate that. Thanks.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you for all your help.
Here to help.
Yes.
We appreciate it. Yes, I was gonna say, careful, warning. We're gonna seem bright. Oh,
Mary, do you need me to stick around for exec? Or, okay, awesome.
thank you, Bob.
Nice meeting you.
Yes, very nice meeting you.
Thank you
Bob,
all.
thank
It's
you
been a-
very much.
It's been a really
Yes.
honor.
Yes.
Yes,
Great
absolutely.
working with you.
Thank you.